He used to believe that love was something you secured once and then protected by routine. You showed up. You stayed. You didn't leave. That, he thought, was enough. They met at a time when neither of them was really looking for anything serious. Life was busy, slightly chaotic, but manageable. She laughed easily back then. Not loudly, but sincerely. The kind of laughter that didn't demand attention, yet somehow stayed with you long after it faded. At first, everything felt simple. Mornings meant shared silence, coffee cooling on the table, small touches that didn't ask for explanation. Evenings were predictable, calm. No arguments. No drama. Friends said they were lucky, a stable couple. And he agreed. Stability became his proof of love. He worked hard. Long hours. Real responsibilities. He told himself he was doing it for them. For the future. For security. For a life that wouldn't fall apart at the first problem. She never complained, at least. Not in words. But there were signs, the kind you only recognize later, when replaying memories like unfinished sentences. She started asking questions that didn't sound like questions at all. Are you happy? Do you ever miss us? Do you think people can feel lonely together? He answered logically, calmly. He reassured her. He explained. He solved. What he didn't do was pause. He didn't notice how she stopped reaching for his hand first. How her stories became shorter. How she began to fill the silence he once shared with her. Alone. He thought silence meant comfort. To her, it meant distance. Some nights, she lay awake next to him, staring at the ceiling, wondering how two people could be so close and yet feel so far apart. He slept peacefully, convinced that love didn't need constant attention to survive. He believed love was solid. She felt it was slowly evaporating. And neither of them said the one thing that mattered most. Not yet. The first time he felt it, he ignored it. It happened on an ordinary evening, the kind that once made him feel safe. He came home later than usual, tired, mind still half at work. The apartment was quiet. Not the peaceful quiet he associated with comfort, but something hollow, like a room waiting to be filled. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. No smile when he walked in. No, how was your day? Just a nod, polite, distant. Everything okay? He asked. She hesitated, just for a second, then nodded. Yeah, just tired. He accepted the answer because it required nothing from him. Dinner passed in fragments. Short sentences. Long pauses. He talked about work. A new project. Deadlines. She listened, nodded again, but her eyes weren't really there. They drifted to the window, to the dark street below, as if something outside held more meaning than the man sitting across from her. That night, she didn't lean toward him in bed. It wasn't dramatic. There was no argument, no sharp words, just space. A few inches that felt heavier than any fight they'd ever had. He told himself it was normal. People go through phases. Relationships mature. Passion settles. That's what everyone said. Days turn into weeks. The distance didn't grow suddenly. It expanded quietly, invisibly, like a crack forming inside a wall you trust to hold. She stopped sharing the small things. The weird story from work. The random thought she used to blurt out mid-sentence. The music she discovered and couldn't wait to play for him. When he asked how her day was, she answered honestly, but briefly, as if the longer version no longer belonged to him. He noticed she spent more time alone. Long walks, late showers, sitting on the couch with a book she didn't always read. Once, he asked, half joking, "Am I boring you?" She looked at him for a long moment before replying. "No," she said softly, "not boring." But she didn't say no to the question he didn't ask. He began to feel something unfamiliar. Not fear, exactly, but unease. A quiet awareness that something important was happening without his participation. One evening, he came home early. He expected surprise, gratitude. Instead, he found her crying silently at the kitchen table. The sight froze him. "What's wrong?" he asked, panic creeping into his voice. She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed, as if she'd been caught doing something private. "It's nothing," she said. "Just a long day." He sat across from her, unsure of what to do with his hands, his words, himself. "Did I do something?" he asked. She shook her head. That answer should have comforted him. Instead, it unsettled him deeply. Because if he hadn't done anything wrong, then why did it feel like he was losing her? He wanted to fix it, to say the right thing, to restore balance. But he didn't know what the problem was. Later that night, lying awake, he replayed moments from the past year. He searched for mistakes, for obvious turning points. There were none, just accumulation. Missed glances, unanswered feelings. Love expressed through responsibility instead of presence. For the first time, a frightening thought surfaced. What if love isn't something you keep by being reliable? What if it needs to be felt constantly, or it fades? He turned toward her in the dark. She was awake. He almost spoke, almost reached for her hand, almost asked the question that scared him the most. "Are you still in love with me?" But he stayed silent. And in that silence, something fragile inside their relationship cracked a little more. Morning came quietly. No alarms, no rush, just pale light slipping through the curtains and settling on the walls like dust. He woke before her and lay still, listening to her breathing. It was steady, calm, the breathing of someone who had already accepted something he was still afraid to name. For a moment, he imagined staying like this forever. Not moving, not speaking, pretending nothing was wrong. But the feeling in his chest didn't let him. When she opened her eyes, she didn't smile. She looked at the ceiling, blinking slowly, as if preparing herself. "Can we talk today?" she asked. "Not now, not about what, just today." His stomach tightened. "Yeah," he said. "Of course." They didn't talk over breakfast. They didn't talk on the way to work. The day stretched endlessly between them, heavy with anticipation. Every message he typed to her, he erased. Every time his phone buzzed, his heart jumped. That evening, she suggested a walk. The air was cool. The sky dimmed into soft blues and grays. People passed them, laughing, living, unaware that something was quietly ending beside them. They walked for a long time before she spoke. "I've been trying to understand how to say this without hurting you," she said. He stopped walking. She didn't. "I don't think that's possible anymore." He caught up to her, panic in his voice. "Say what?" She exhaled slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath for months. "I feel alone," she said, "even when you're right next to me." The words hit him harder than anger ever could. "I'm here," he said quickly. "I've always been here." She nodded. "I know, and that's the problem." He frowned, confused, wounded. "What does that mean?" "It means you were present in all the ways that were practical," she continued. "You showed up. You paid bills. You solved problems. You stayed." She looked at him then, really looked, and her eyes were tired. "But you stopped seeing me." He opened his mouth to protest, but nothing came out. She kept going. "I tried," she said quietly. "I tried to talk. I tried to show you. I tried to wait for you to notice." He searched his memory desperately. Conversations, moments, signals. There were some. He had dismissed them as stress, as mood swings, as temporary sadness. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I know," she said gently. "And that's what hurts the most." They sat on a bench beneath a street lamp. Silence stretched between them again, but this time it wasn't avoidance. It was grief. "I still love you," she said after a while. "But it's different now. It feels like loving someone who can't hear me." Tears burned his eyes. "Tell me what to do," he said. "I'll change. I swear. Just tell me." She shook her head slowly. "That's the thing," she said. "I don't want to teach someone how to care anymore." Something inside him collapsed. He realized then that love hadn't left suddenly. It had been leaking out in small, unnoticed moments. Every time he chose comfort over curiosity, routine over connection. "When did this happen?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "Honestly," she said, "when I stopped feeling disappointed. That's when I knew something was wrong." They walked back home in silence. Inside the apartment, everything looked the same. The couch, the photos, the quiet order of a life they had built together. But he saw it differently now. He saw all the moments he had assumed would always be there. She packed slowly. Not everything, just enough. At the door, she hesitated. "I hope one day," she said, You'll love someone the way they need, not the way that's easiest for you. Then she left. The door clicked shut with a sound so small it felt unreal. He stood there for a long time. Later, alone, he sat on the edge of the bed and finally understood the truth he had avoided. Love doesn't end because people stop trying. It ends because one person keeps trying alone and realizing that is the loneliest moment of all.